Well, good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the new year with us, our first episode of Limited Resource Awareness with my friend, my buddy, my pal, my minister, Angela Brown. How are you?
Hi, fine. Good to greet a new year.
It is a new year, a new day, a new everything, including
Yeah.
a new message. All right, everybody, if this is your first time joining us. This is Ms.B, positively Ms.B, right here on Storm Talk 365 Radio in the Limited Resource Awareness Group. We're going to be talking about a lot of things this year, but you can find me right here with Angela B. Brown, CEO of Yeshua's House, the first Tuesday of every month, usually at 1 p.m., but we have a special episode. We had to come on a little early. So thank you so much for joining us. And you can find us at www.stormtalk365radio.com or on our Facebook fan page, Stormtalk 365 Radio. So, Angela, how has the new year been since it's only been 5 days?
It has been awesome. We're still getting residual benefits from what we did in 2020 because that's how God works. So we cannot complain at all.
I love that. A lot of people wanted to get those donations in before the end of the year. So, congratulations on that. I guess we can talk a little bit about that later. But right now, what is your topic for today?
Oh, I'm excited about it. Been studying this for years. That the tongue has the power of life and death, and it has that power because words are spirit. There isn't any way you can put a handle on them. They're spirit, and they arise out of our spirit. And the breath of life that was put into us in the beginning by our Creator was spirit, right? So out of our breath we speak, and we speak life or we speak death. And I title this "The Cure for All Evils." Because
Yes, it is. It is.
yeah, everything begins with speech. Everything negative begins there. Everything positive begins there. You have to speak your goals. You have to speak um, good relationships into your life. You have to decide not to speak what is negative. Anyway, there's a lot to it, and I'm anxious to get into it.
I'm anxious to get into it too. A morning show with Miss B. My topic this week is relationships. Yesterday I talked about detoxing and decluttering, and today I talked about toxic relationships. But I wanted people to understand it's not always about how people treat you. It's how are you treating other people? Do you recognize the symptoms of your own toxicity in the relationships? And one of those things is the tongue. How they talk to people, how they respond to people. So I guess we're on the same spiritual level right today. So
Right.
go ahead. Let's talk about that tongue.
Okay.
Bridle the tongue. I love that.
Right.
That's kind of hard to do.
Right. Well, in World War II, there was, uh, I guess they made posters out of it, everything. Loose lips sink ships.
Hmm.
And so if you knew that your son was in Guam, but he wasn't supposed to tell you, and maybe you didn't even know because he told you, but you
And
knew
that
by
actually
something,
happened. That actually
yeah,
happened. Oh my
yeah,
goodness.
yeah.
Go ahead.
And you speak it out. Well, my son's in Guam. That must be a big theater for the war. And so, loose lips sink ships, even in political and war, but we're speaking about relationships today.
That's
And
war.
so, yeah, can be, or it can be peace. But so loose lips also sink relationships, and relationships, you know, would what would the statistics look like on uh, divorce and uh, uh, enmity between those who were once friends and all? What would those look like if we guarded our tongue instead of just speaking everything that we happen to think? Giving people a piece of our mind, as we say. Well, if you give people a piece of your mind and it's a negative piece, you've diminished yourself. You've diminished your own mind. So I guess I want to begin with uh, what I call the cure for all evils. And the reason I call it that is I think that there are two tips that I want to get out of the way to begin with. One is, in order to bridle our tongue, we have to realize how it maims and kills a person's spirit. Character assassination is real. We call it assassination because it meant something in that person dies. And it has a ripple effect because anyone hearing that character assassination, then his thoughts are colored on about the person whose character has been assassinated, which is why we say, yo, you can go to court for that. So even the world understands character assassination is real. And so that's the first tip, is that we need to realize the power of our tongue or negative. And then we need to realize that we can harness that power. I mean, electricity is no good until you harness it, right? So neither are our words good until we harness them. And we harness them for good, and then we determine to spread life whenever we speak. And it gets easier as it gets easier every time you tighten your jaw and don't say what you're thinking. It gets easier to control your tongue. Even physically, the tongue has guards in it. It's got the teeth, the lips, the jaw. So it is contained, and I think we can take a lesson from where it's placed in our body to say, okay, if I've got all those guards around it, it must be something that my mind and spirit need to guard also. Okay, so question. What was the most hurtful word ever said to you? You don't have to answer that if you don't want to, but
Oh no,
I think something
no.
comes to mind for most people. Go ahead.
You said word, and that's what
Word,
caught me.
word or words, whatever.
Oh yeah, because
A
I was like,
sentence, a
okay,
sentence, a
one word.
concept. No.
You know, there is one that hurt me, and I allowed it to hurt me because it shocked me, to be honest with you. But of course, there's one of many from many different people. But we're talking about domestic violence and the impact that words can have on you in those types of situations. And I have shared some of my experiences with you earlier. So one of the things that really hurt me, um, I'm just wondering if I've actually gotten over it. Now I mentioned it. Um, when I was married to my children's father, I worked a lot. But when I got married, I was 123 pounds. And after my first child, I was 135. I thought I was doing great, 135. And so, but I worked midnight shift. And so I was tired. And I usually stayed up with the kids until 6 or 7. Then it was time for me to go to bed. But when it was time for him to go to bed, it was time for me to get up. And I'm like, no, we're not going to do this. We have to have sex on nights where I'm off or something, because we just can't. I just got into bed and I got 2 hours of sleep. And so the situations went on and on and on. And he was not a very nice man anyway. So the story goes, one night, the situation came up about sex or no sex. And again, I was already self-conscious because I gained 10 pounds and now I'm 235. So that's a big difference. And my husband loves me. But at the time, domestic violence is domestic violence. So in relation to that, I know we push for time, but people need to understand what they say out of their mouths and then how long they allow these things to impact them. So my answer was no to the sex. And so the statement that hurt me was, you big gut MF, you ought to be glad somebody wants your BA. So
Just packing it in there. Every negative word.
I mean, it was bad enough, big gut, but then you can throw profanity in there. It's like, okay, that just killed it.
Right.
And so in relationship to domestic violence and the tongue, you're right, it can kill relationships. It really can. And that hurt me.
Yeah. And verbal abuse is the most common of all abuses. And the damage it begins is the most difficult to repair because we have that recording in our head, right? And even if we don't know where it began, because some of it began in childhood, even if we don't know where it began, that recording tends to play. So let's think for a minute. If a person were to grow up without ever being verbally abused, not by family, not by bullies at school, never, can we see how phenomenally successful they could be? Because nothing would hold them back. Sometimes we talk about self-discovery as a young person, but self-discovery should be something that we're engaged in from the time we're born. What makes it so difficult for us to discover ourselves when that's who we are? And I maintain that it has to do, the reason more people don't self-actualize, as we talked about with Maslow's hierarchy, is because we've constantly got things coming at us that keep us from being who we are or make us ashamed of who we are, or we're comparing ourselves with someone that we're not. But it should come naturally. And when insecurities build, it becomes harder and harder to be successful, meaning to be who you are. Because that's the only measure of success is, are you who you are? None of us is successful at being somebody else. So that would be staggering. I love an author named Jessica Care Moore, and I haven't heard from her for years. She called herself the Detroit Butterfly. She spoke at Virginia State one year when I was there. Just loved her. Anyway, I'm going to read a little section of a poem, and this relates to. She calls it potential, and this relates to her having to break up with a boyfriend because he didn't realize his own potential. So let's listen to this.
Oh, I like that.
She says, and this came from the poem Potential. I keep falling in love with potential, but it never seems to work. He was full of a lot of it, and he was tall, but potential had a way of becoming diluted with insecurities. And just because you can see the beauty of someone doesn't mean they see it for themselves. Very sad. Very sad. When we have been abused by a loved one, verbally abused, I'm not even talking about any other kind right now. But if we have been verbally abused by a loved one, it is so much easier for us to accept verbal abuse from other people. And that plants the seed for us falling in love with someone who demeans us. That accepting verbal abuse from a boyfriend or a girlfriend is born from accepting it from your loved ones, expecting it from your loved ones.
Mm-hmm.
So, interestingly, when you study the Hebrew in Genesis 2, God did not say he breathed into man and man became a living being. The words more Hebraically speaking were, and man became a speaking spirit.
Oh my God. Jesus. Come on now.
A speaking spirit.
We know
dogs don't speak. Dogs don't speak. They don't have the same spirit we have. We speak because our God speaks, because language came from him. It is our greatest gift. So, just as God breathed life into man, man breathes life into other people when he speaks. This is something that we have in common with the Creator. And we are to use this as a tool and not a weapon. Um, you know, negative words are responsible for almost every broken friendship, every shattered career, or divorce. Those seeds are planted by hurtful words. This is the other man. I'm gonna hold this up. You've probably seen this before. Just before you speak, think. T is it true? H is it helpful? I is it inspiring? N is it necessary? And K is it kind? So if we would think before we speak, that means we have to control our temper too, right? But I've been studying. I told you I've been studying this for years. A rabbi called Kofetz Chaim. You know, in Hebrew, we take words, we take a name for ourselves that fits who we are. Chaim means life. So the Kofetz Chaim wrote about the what's it called? I have it right here. The concepts and laws of proper speech arranged for daily study. So he's got 365 days, and he speaks of the scriptures that deal with the tongue for 365 days and how we can implement them in our lives. So this is what he says about negative speech. The speaker of negative speech trains himself in bitterness and complaining. In his eyes, he is surrounded by irritating, inconsiderate, flawed people who make this his world a disappointing, uncomfortable place. His perceptions fill his heart with anger and disdain, and his mouth gives form and life to his feelings. So the first person we hurt when we release negative words is ourselves. We're actually assassinating our own character because we're allowing the root of bitterness to become stronger instead of uprooting it, right? Okay, so on the other hand, guarding the tongue is how you create positive speech, and it focuses on the good and recognizes our brotherhood in people. Even when we see a flaw in someone, don't we recognize that we have that flaw too? We may not have carried it to whatever degree we think they did. Somebody else might disagree with us, about how far that flaw goes. But if we can relate, yeah, I've been angry enough to say that. Yeah, I've been stupid enough to do that, or to, or I had that temptation, and I know what it took to take it down. If we can think like that, then our love of our fellow man is going to be determining what we say. And you and I have talked about before, you can't love somebody better than yourself. Otherwise, the word wouldn't say, love your neighbor as yourself. So the first words that we have to control is what we say about ourselves. And I don't know if anybody else has the problem, but for years, people have been saying, or indicating to me in some way, why can't you take a compliment?
Ooh, that has been an issue with me. Seriously.
It's rooted in our insecurities.
I admitted that I'm a very insecure person because of the seeds that have been sowed in my life.
Yeah.
And I talked about that on my videos.
Yeah. Yeah. So usually, I don't catch myself till after the conversation is over where the compliment was, that just say thank you. Just say thank you. That's all. That's actually, you're honoring the other person by saying thank you. Otherwise, if you're saying, I doubt your words, you're saying, I don't value your opinion. Anyway, we're a work in progress. But so, speech literally redefines reality. As soon as I say that so and so is irritating, you begin to see all the irritating things that he does. You may never have thought he was irritating. You might have thought he was funny. You might have thought he was I don't know, a jolly good fellow. I think he's irritating. I put that out, and now your opinion of him is colored. That's wrong. I've harmed that man and his reputation. Now, let's think on a national level. What does negative speech do to us on a national level? And I know the first thoughts we go to is the politics of the era. However, I want to go to something that even preceded that made it possible for us to accept leadership with an evil tongue. What made that possible? Well, look at our entertainment. Whether it's songs or situation comedies or comedy routines. I mean, to me, it went all the way back. I recognized it when I was like in my 20s, when comedy took a turn and it became turning a knife in somebody else's back. And I thought, how am I supposed to laugh at that? That's cruel. But we did. We overwhelmingly laughed at those comedians that led the way to comedians that engaged in profanity and what's the other one? Using vulgarities, and then character assassination.
I
So,
remember, I know I'm telling my age. I didn't mean to interrupt, but you're absolutely right. I remember the roast that they used to have, Dean Martin and all of those, the roast.
Yes.
And now it's your mama this, your daddy this, and then it went from personal insults to just plain old vulgarity and profanity. I remember it was a time that everything was, if you did say it was bleeped out, but now it's a free for all. So yeah, Dean Martin's roast and all of those, type of things. Yeah. And that's been a minute.
Yeah, it set a precedent. So I mean, we're at least saying the 50s and 60s. But this overwhelmingly negative speech on a national level begins a ripple effect in society, and I believe it results in lack of self-confidence, lack of self-esteem, people creating fewer worthwhile goals, not following healthy desires, not having noble dreams. So, when I was teaching college, I talked to my students about the cure for all evils, because it was actually something I wrote as an example essay, because I had to write an essay on something they believed strongly in. And so I ended it with this, you had the opportunity to be in college and take back something very valuable to your home. Because most homes, and maybe I'm just going by what I know, but many homes, I'll put it that way, many homes, when they get together for holidays and stuff, they begin saying things like, I remember when you, and everybody gets ready for the laugh track, because they want to bring some embarrassing incident to light at your expense. And this is what we call the family humor. And I said, you can change that. You've had an experience that they haven't had. You understand the value of words now because you've been in this English class. So you take encouraging words back. And instead of saying, I remember when, and bringing up something negative, say, I remember when, and bring up a precious memory that elevates people, that unites people, where they can see their mother in a good light. There are people who can't even speak about their mother without making fun of them. So, and I said I was going to give you a couple tips. Another one is that, man, you cannot hold a positive thought in your mind and a negative one at the same time. So when you see a negative thought coming, you switch it up. do a positive thing. I know one of the things that I have to say is they're young. They are young. I remember being young. I remember making mistakes and letting my mouth just be like a shotgun.
Not you.
Absolutely. Because if 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 your mouth is your strength, it is the worst weapon you possess, or it is the best cure for anything and anybody that you possess. You have to control the tongue. So, um, and when you go on a diet, they tell you don't think about what you can't have. Surround yourself with what you can have. Eat what you can. Talk about and think about what you can. So, in this, the same thing goes for the tongue. It's easier to speak positively than it is to guard your tongue against what's negative. So speak, 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 always positive, and these negative thoughts are going to flee. And when somebody, because somebody comes to us with a negative word about someone we know, counter it. Counter it. It could be, but you know their heart. That isn't who they really are. You know what I mean? You don't have to put the speaker down, but move their thoughts to the positive things about that person. Or I wouldn't entertain that if I were you, because if you get right down to it, it's not the truth of who that person is. So, I believe that, James said that the tongue is the most difficult thing to control. So it's a lifelong exercise to control this tongue. And the more we do it, the higher we are in the esteem of others. What a payoff, right? It means when you speak positive things, your image in people's eyes rises. And that means you have more influence. And influence is what's going to change your life for the better, or continue to increase the value of your life. So I'm going to leave you with that thought.
Oh, I'm just sitting back, relaxing, chillaxing. I'm loving it because you're speaking so many things that I've either talked about, I'm going to talk about this week. But you're right. And I'm giving a prime example. Someone that I knew through their past experiences was attempting to build a relationship with someone else that I knew. And I didn't know how to warn them without sounding negative, but yet I felt responsible not to let it go. And so when I was communicating with the other person, I constantly said, they have a good heart. I said, it's not, they've been through a lot. They have a lot of triggers. There's a lot of things going on, and I wasn't trying to justify it, but like you said, counter it, add to it, because that's not who they are personally. And actually, let's just go there, Angela. Negativity is a spiritual attack that people either are aware of or not aware of, or they agree with or don't. But negativity is not how we were created. We were created by a creator who created us to love. So anything other than that is a spiritual attack. So it's not them. It's the relationship spiritually.
And it doesn't mean that sometimes, it doesn't mean that sometimes you have to warn people of who somebody is, because sometimes that's the kindest thing you can do. If it's necessary, it would be helpful to them. And you've made sure that what your words are saying are true. Okay. I tell people when they, you have to break up with somebody that you've been with a while, and you think, I can't do that to him. You're doing it, if he's negative, you're doing it for his betterment. So he will know that that's not how you can keep a relationship. Then he needs to change, and the ball is his court.
That's exactly what we were talking about today. Toxic relationships. That being said, tighten that jaw, Angela. Tighten that jaw. I
Yeah.
love it. Thank you so much for your input. And that has a lot to do with what we're talking about, helping people to come to Yeshua's house and understand that it's not always the other person either. How much of an antagonist were you to that individual with your personality and your toxic tongue? There's a lot of times people who come into domestic violence situations who wants it to be all the other person. And sometimes we have to put on our big girl underwear and say, wait a minute, what did I do? What did I do wrong? All right, Angela, I thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I know you don't know what we're going to talk about next month, but I look forward to it anyway.
Yeah, it's something related
Oh, you already
because this
picked
is
it
a big
out?
topic. It's something related. It's a big topic, right?
All right, then. Well, we're going to talk more
Okay.
about that tongue, huh?
Side effects of abuse.
Oh,
Yeah,
she's already. Well, just email that to me to make
I
sure I get
will.
side effects
I
of
will.
abuse. I'm loving it. All right, Angela, hug your husband for me, and thank you so much for joining us
Thank you so much.
once a
Thank
month. I've already put the video on your page so we can share it. Okay.
you. Okay. Have a wonderful year, my dear.
You too, sweetheart. Blessings. Bye bye, everybody. Angela's exit. I don't even know where you are. Angela, I can't exit you.